Hello and welcome to Sarah Straight Up, the third episode. This is a podcast where we tell you how it is. We dive into real life stories shaping business, life and everything in between. I'm your host, Sarah Malik, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Imran Sheikh, founder, partner, investor and expert in structuring funds and real estate investment trusts. Imran has over 2 decades of international experience in real estate investments. He's a founder of BlackOak Global and founder and partner of BlackOak Real Estate, where high-level deal restructuring meets an honest approach to client service. Imran's also a friend of mine. Imran, thank you very much for coming on. Let's talk about your early career and your formative experience. Your background spans Europe, the Middle East, and even North America. You've facilitated real estate transactions worth billions, which is no small feat. So look, how did you initially find yourself in the world of real estate and finance? And what drew you into this space? Please tell us.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Sarah, for having me here. So I started my career very early on in computer science, in IT. So I read computer science at university, and shortly after graduating, I started working in finance, investments, but on the tech side. So working with the major UK banks and investment houses. Sort of being exposed and working in such close proximity to the investment and finance world, I became very sort of intrigued and interested in the finance and investment elements of business. So that's what gave me initially my exposure. Also, I've been very entrepreneurial in my mindset. So, over the years that kind of went from working for somebody and then transitioning into having my own business.
I was going to ask that. How does an investment professional coming from a traditional background, how do you end up running your own agency?
Right.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head. You had that entrepreneurial spirit.
Sure.
How have you found that journey?
So being in London, when my early part of my career was very much working for larger institutions. When I moved to the later part of my career, while I was still in the UK, I had that itch and I set up businesses. So set up businesses, took equity positions, had partnerships with different businesses. Then in 2007, I moved out here to Dubai with the intention of setting something up, but not knowing the landscape or the country very well. You got into the rat race, started working for somebody, and eventually, and I think probably too late, and I wish I had started earlier, I then had the urge to set up my own business and my own venture again. And that was about 4 years ago.
You're known for your experience in real estate investment trusts, and you've facilitated major transactions worth billions of dollars. Can you tell our audience why are REITs so pivotal, especially in a place like the UAE?
So I've been very fortunate, exposed to the REIT world here in the UAE. So a number of core reasons REITs are pivotal here. One, the UAE market is asset heavy and largely illiquid, right? So like most places in the world, but having these real estate assets and putting them into a structure which is then ultimately listed on a stock exchange provides liquidity to the investors. It provides a mechanism where investors, retail investors, can quite easily enter and exit positions without the sort of burden or the hassle of traditional dealing with physical transactions at the land department. So one of the reasons, just to kind of go back to your point, is REITs provide liquidity. Secondly, REITs have to distribute 90% of the net income to their investors. They provide a greater level of diversification. So when you're investing into a fund or a REIT, you're getting exposed to a number of different assets across different asset classes. So your risk is also diversified across locations, different asset classes. And also the REIT structure provides greater governance and transparency.
Okay. So you're sold on REITs, clearly,
because you
talk about it very, very well. Let's talk about real estate.
Sure.
Everybody from Dubai and across the world is hugely vested and interested in the space we have here in Dubai. And we see over the years we've gone from strength to strength, depending on which side of the fence you sit on, whether you're a landlord, you're the tenant. There's differing views of where we're at the moment. But there's this kind of common I'm not going to call it a misconception, but a common understanding. Buy in Dubai, you're going to get rich quick, you're going to become a billionaire overnight. But also real estate agents are a bit dodgy. You know, they'll sell you anything for a commission. So let's talk real talk. Talk to me about the behind the scenes.
Sure.
I'm used to seeing on Instagram and all the internet about how great it is to always buy, but let's talk reality.
Sure. So, look, the real estate market here is great, right? You have incredible returns. It's a robust market, world-class infrastructure. But still, at the same time, you have the other side of it where, when a market is going through boom and good times, you have everybody looking into the market from outside. So you have a lot of investors which are coming in. And yes, there is this fallacy that you're going to invest in the real estate market here in the UAE and overnight success, right? Yes, you get incredible returns here, but there's no such thing as an overnight success in real estate. Like anywhere in the world, when you look at real estate, it's about due diligence, it's about timing, it's about strategy. So it's important to look at all of those aspects when you are investing. Now, in terms of agents, yes, they'll promise you the moon, right? They'll sell you everything. And a lot of this has sort of changed in terms of the culture of real estate. Traditionally, it was very much about just sell. Very hard selling tactics, aggressive salespeople. But over the years, we've seen sort of that whole industry becoming more advisory and consultative. And when I say that's happening across some of the more professional agencies. Still, a lot of the agencies are focused on just sales, right? And that's it.
And do you think that's compounded by the fact that a lot in this industry are commission-based? So if these agents don't sell, they don't get paid. So how does that, in your view, sit well with the ethics of selling and making sure that when you come to me and say, Sarah, buy this, you have a vested interest in my return on investment or otherwise, or it's the right kind of deal for me? Because I'm trusting you.
Sure.
You know the market.
Of course. And that's a great question. And because they are largely, and I'd say, majority of the agents here are commission-based, it does leave that gap there. So you'll end up seeing that agents are very much commission driven and they are pushing products. It's very commoditized, the real estate market here. So agents will always just focus on whoever's giving them the highest commission. But now, as the market is maturing, you're seeing that the investors have become more savvy and they understand the market, they understand the products. So, and when they do see good agents, they see the professionals that are, data driven. Yeah. They have, a certain level of professionalism and understanding, and they can say no as well as say yes. So, when an investor comes to us and says, okay, what about this project? We say no as many times as we say yes. We say, look, that's not the right product for you. And that's a key importance in the market today.
And I think that gives a huge level of credibility, and certainly from the buyer side. We like to deal with agents who know the market, who can answer the questions. Sure. And often investors who come to you have a portfolio. They know what they're talking about. They know areas. Yeah. And if agents try and hoodwink them, they're very easily caught out. But I think you differentiate yourself at BlackOak because I've certainly myself been privy to how people are trained in your venture. And let's talk about BlackOak Real Estate. Sure. So it's more than just property transactions. You don't just sell units. There's a strong emphasis you have on relationship building in your business and personalized client advisory. So how do you say that shapes your approach compared to a traditional brokerage model?
So very much rightly said. Our focus has always been not only on square footage and transactions, right? It's been on advisory over sales. It's building up those relationships over transactions. So we were very much focused on the client. So we've always taken that consultative and advisory approach when dealing, as opposed to just being purely transactional. Now, even in terms of the agents that we hire, so we are very selective in that process. If you look at the traditional brokerage models, it's about volumes, it's about leads, it's about listings, it's about doing the deal as quick as possible. And for us, it's the opposite, right? We are very much consultative in our whole approach throughout this. We see our clients as partners. Today, when we're building a portfolio for our client, we're managing that to focus on the strategy, the exit strategy, because they're there with us not only for the short term, but for the full length, right? And because of that, and testament to, I guess, the team and how we operate, we do tend to sort of focus or attract more institutional and professional clients.
And I think that's important because everybody likes to kind of stay with a brand or stay with a trusted advisor. Yes. It's hassle to kind of look around as well. So once you find your right people, you stick to them. $1 million question I keep seeing and hearing, and as lawyers we get asked as well. A new hot topic, the regulation where agents and agencies are falling into all kinds of trouble and 50,000 dirham fines if they don't include a DLD, which is a Dubai Land Department, QR code in their advertising. Can you break that down? Is this new? What's going on? What needs to happen?
So yes, a fairly new regulation, and I guess I would say welcomed by professional agents and agencies, because it provides, again, a level of transparency, right? So if we, as an agency, are listing a property, we're advertising a property on behalf of a developer, we have to apply for a QR code from the Dubai Land Department. So once we get that, every advert, every posting on social media, any listing, everything has to come with a QR code. Now that gives the buyer confidence that, okay, we have the permission and the NOC, the no objection certificate, to kind of promote that project. And on the other hand, that we've applied for that, we're professional enough to kind of have the QR codes. On the flip side, it removes any of the duplicate listings that were happening previously, right? Okay. So you had a lot of unprofessional, unlicensed agents in the market, and those agents were taking listings, posting and promoting projects when they had no permission from clients, and that, I guess, became a bit of a pet peeve for the market, and that's why when the regulations came in, I think, for a lot of the professional agencies, it was a very welcomed approach.
So it's a kind of almost like a first step in regulation, but also it gives the public and the buy side trust, because we do hear the stories of people being scammed by these rogue agents who, selling properties that when the owner's abroad on holiday, suddenly, I bought your property, no you didn't, because, I own it, and you never see the agent again. Do you think that this regulation will help weed out unethical players?
For
in the
sure,
market, yeah?
For sure it will, and I think you start seeing that now, just because of the effort, the cost, and having a proper setup. It's not easy, to get the QR codes. You need to have a full infrastructure. So a lot of the fly-by-night agents that are just trying, in this industry, or agencies that have set up, it will weed them out as well, for sure.
What do you advise property buyers or sellers to check? If I want to know X agent or Y agent is legitimate, how do I do my own due diligence?
So, start by looking at the website. Start by looking at the agency, looking at their adverts, looking at their listings. You should see a QR code. When you see a QR code associated with that company, you know that the company is genuine. Also, if you are listing, always ask for the agency to fill in the forms, the government forms. There's Form A, Form B, Form F. So the transaction is governed by these forms, and that's a very, very professional way. Yes, you will not be able to kind of, transact without these forms. So it puts you in the whole system, which is then regulated. Also, buyers can check for broker IDs. So again, you have a whole portal where you can see all the brokers that are registered, and you see their IDs, as well as the office registration number. So you see the agencies themselves are registered with the land department.
This is a whole checklist you could go through yourself.
Exactly.
And these QR codes, are they given to everybody?
So an agency can apply for it, but again, they have to have that criteria. Have to be licensed, registered, have the NOCs from the associated partner, right? Whether they're advertising a developer, so you'll get the NOC from the developer, or from, if you're selling one of your houses, Sarah, right? We have to take an NOC from you to be able to list your property.
Okay.
So.
Thank you very much, Imran. I'm going to now give you some rapid-fire personal reflections, which are hopefully going to inspire our listeners, and they always like to hear real talk. So, Imran, let's shift some gear. What do you wish you knew in your 20s? Not that you look much older than 20, but back in your 20s, back in the day.
Great question. I think I've been asked this a couple of times. I would say that I wish that, I knew the compounded interest wasn't only a financial concept, right? I truly believe that compounded interest is a strategy for life, and knowing that and sort of having changed a lot of things would have been very helpful.
Would have been helpful. What's the biggest myth about success that you've encountered in your journey so far?
Biggest myth, I would say that you have to start early and have your shit figured out.
Yeah.
Sorry if I can say
No,
that.
that's fine, yeah.
Right? A lot of people go through many changes, pivot number of times through their career before they know what what they want and what their passion is. So you don't have to have it all figured out straight out of uni.
You just need to start, right?
You need to start.
And figure it out as you go along.
Exactly.
Absolutely agree. Who do you look up to and why?
So I look up to people who are grounded and probably have every reason not to be grounded. So quiet achievers with impact, I would say.
A quote that you live by or you always find yourself saying?
So recently I've found myself in telling other people, memento mori, right? Remember that you will die. If we remember that we're going to die, I think it changes our perspective, right? We take more risk, we live, we enjoy life. Too many times you get bogged down into, the hamster wheel of life.
Yeah.
And I keep reminding myself, right? You got to live. You start taking life slightly lighter.
I think that's a great way to look at it. What's the worst piece of advice you've received? You don't have to tell us who gave it to you, but tell us what it was.
Probably earlier on in my life when I could have taken risks, I was told to play it safe.
Right.
And I would say that playing it safe at that stage is probably, one of the ultimate risks. So not to, the worst piece of advice is to play it safe, I would have said.
And I think that applies for people like yourself, people like me who are entrepreneurs.
Sure.
But there is a whole, and in fact, most people are happy to play it safe. They don't want to come out of their comfort zone.
Exactly.
I agree with you that comfort kills success.
Yes.
And I would never tell anybody to play it safe. But I also acknowledge that it's not for everyone, right?
I was in a very similar situation.
Yeah.
So, I played it safe for many years.
Yeah.
And I wish I had started my venture a lot sooner.
A lot sooner, yeah. If I was to ask you to describe yourself in 3 words.
Focused, adaptive, and driven, I would say.
And a career failure that you've learned from?
So I would say sometimes not having the right people as partners or as a team that you're working with. So many times we have great ideas. And yes, it's about the execution. So a lot of people have great ideas out there. But apart from the execution, it's the people behind, your team that are going to execute that vision. And that's important. And I think, in the past I have selected or worked with the wrong team. And that's part of the failures that we've had.
And I think that's for every entrepreneur, and you don't know until you go through that. But your team are the ones, they say individually you can go fast and collectively you go far.
Sure.
Your team can make and break you. Your team are your front-facing, closing, making, breaking deals.
Yes.
And also, even in a friendship circle, show me your friends, I'll show you your future, I'll show you who you are. And
Exactly.
I always say as well, it's so important.
Yes.
To know who you're kind of hanging out with and what their aims and visions and are, because otherwise you can really be brought down very quickly.
Truly believe that. And that's sort of, guides my network today, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very important. Okay, let's look at the future. So you've got extensive networks across continents, a very well-respected individual, I must say, both here and abroad. What's next for you in your career, and BlackOak especially? We have this ever-changing landscape in the UAE and globally. So
Sure.
where do you see yourself?
So with BlackOak, it's kind of moving beyond the agency and typical transactional and advisory side of the business. We are looking to do more projects on ourselves, our development projects. So focusing on development projects, investment structures. We are going down that route now. We're looking at more funds, how to structure more institutional grade funds, and I would say partner with larger institutions in the region as well.
So in the future, we're going to see the Imran Sheikh Tower next to the Burj Khalifa or down the boulevard. That could be on the cards, who knows? Lots of our listeners are aspiring entrepreneurs. They may be new agents. They might want to establish themselves. What top piece of advice would you give to those who are young in their career and really don't know which way to go?
Sure. And I say this a lot to agents, especially when I do meet aspiring agents, and I guess this can also relate to entrepreneurs as well. So know your product, right? If you are an agent and you're focusing on a specific area, know what you're selling, know the communities, know the numbers, know everything about what you're working on. And then also consistency, right? It's about being consistent, turning up every single day, and the small efforts.
I hear people saying, I heard this on the grapevine just a short while ago, oh, Dubai is saturated, there's no point doing anything here now, let's go to RAK, let's set up in RAK, because that's the new kind of palm, with Al Marjan, with the Wynn Casino, etc. Where do people begin if they're beginning from scratch in a very competitive field like real estate in the UAE?
Sure. So, yes, the market is saturated, but if you look at the companies that have started up over time, they've always, the great companies have started up in saturated markets or in saturated industries. Just, I was discussing an example with my brother yesterday. If you look at the on-running shoes, right, they came into a very saturated, market of trainers.
Yeah.
And look how successful they have been, right? With agencies, we came very late into the market. We entered this market about 4 years ago when there was thousands of agents and agencies in the market. But having a differentiating factor and seeing the gaps in the market, I think you can be successful in even a saturated market. I don't believe that you have to go, out and far. You can find it, in a saturated market in your backyard. So
I absolutely agree with you, because it's similar in a legal kind of profession as well, that we're over-lawyered here. But if you have your USP and you are different and you show what that difference is, when you're chasing everything everyone's doing, that's not an opportunity.
Sure.
But you identify, find, make that opportunity, move forward. And you've done that fantastically well with BlackOak, because already you've differentiated yourself from just every other agent. Imran, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you
you so much, and we're grateful to have you. Stay tuned for our next guest, but thank you, Imran, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.